Okay, so welcome. Hello, everybody. Hello. Welcome to Silent and the Death Machine, talking random shit from
I
Wrestling's
assume
B
you're the
team.
death machine portion.
Yes, yes, I am the Death Machine. I am
Lucky, a
not
specimen.
at not at all built like a jockey's whip. It's yeah, I could
Oh,
I have I have trouble kicking my own son's ass rather than anything else. I'm not going down the line of child brutality straight away, but my son is unnaturally strong.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I just
Anyway,
don't have children because that's a terrible idea.
yeah, never have kids. Never have kids. I love mine to death. Never have kids. So yeah, basically we are going to be talking shit for however long these last for. Um, this is the pilot episode. If we've released this, if you're seeing this, and well done. You found it. Congratulations. You can get involved in whatever the fuck this is going to be. My name is Silent Mark, by the way, and as always, I am joined by.
Aaron next.
There we go. How are you, sir?
I'm all right. Yes, as you know, it's been a wild ride. So, but it's very lovely. I think I guess like we have to do the intro thing, don't we, so that people know who we are going forward a little bit. Like I'm Aaron X. I work in professional wrestling, and that's how I met this beautiful man over here because he is the host of Coliseum Pro Wrestling, but actually he got his start in Odyssey up in Morecambe, and we
Mhm.
met and went for our anniversary dinner on our first date, and
We did.
we have been the best of friends since, which is good stuff. So I'm excited about the concept of just doing something a bit different. I spend
Mhm.
hours. Like anyone who is watching this, I imagine quite a few people from WrestlePlug are watching this. It's not going to be very wrestling heavy. There might be wrestling anecdotes and stories in there, but people are used to me obviously being the bombastic voice of WrestlePlug and being the guy behind the camera and sometimes in front of it, sometimes smashing people up on the Isle of Wight or IWE or CWP or whatever it might be. But yeah, no, I'm just here to chat with my best mate. So good stuff.
And and that's the beauty of this. We genuinely don't know what we're going to do. Some weeks there may be themes, some weeks we may have something to bring to the table of a genuine topic of discussion. Other weeks we are just going to be talking shit.
Yeah,
And as
yeah.
and as you say, there will be wrestling in some way, shape, or form somewhere down the line, but it doesn't need to be. It's
No,
the-
no, I feel like anyone who knows me knows I spend basically my whole life chasing around this magical world of combat pantomime. So for me, I'm like, it's actually quite refreshing to talk about the world. I think you get very typecast very quickly when you work in wrestling full time. People assume you're very one dimensional, that's the only thing you want to talk about. And anyone who knows me knows I'm an incredibly complex, emotional, and very varied individual. I like talking about all sorts of different things. So it's nice to have an outlay and do it with somebody that I trust and love, implicitly to do it with. That's the most important part of this process. So hopefully
that's
people are going to enjoy it and hopefully people are going to interact as well. And if they want us to do like I always thought, I'd love to do a podcast where every week we touch on a different subject. So maybe it's politics, one week love, another, whatever it might be. So it'd be lovely for people who are listening to interact and also send in questions, any questions. The great thing about this is anyone can talk about life. So you must all have questions. So don't be hiding away if you are watching it or listening to it. Send it in. Let us know.
but also, and this is important, don't think we will be correct about anything. I will not speak for Aaron, but I am a fucking idiot. And
Yeah.
if anyone is in a room where I am correct about anything, that room is not a good place to be. So if anyone's coming here for advice, you're in the wrong fucking place.
Well, I mean,
But
we're happy to give our advice, but
us,
obviously take it with a pinch of salt.
oh
Yeah,
yeah,
same with me. Like, as people know, I'm very bombastic. I swear a lot. I'm very un-PC. I'm very unconventional. I'm very anti-conformist, like our good friend Kira Kamara. Yeah, no, I just believe in very uncensored speech. So if you are offended by, anything that might be a little bit too overboard or a little bit too edgy, turn it off.
but
Just turn
also
it off.
on the other hand as well, we aren't going to be here trying to push the boundaries of
Yeah, no,
comedy and
organic.
speech, and we're not that type of people. if we say something that's outlandish, it's off the top of our heads. That's just going to be the way it is. Bringing on to a subject I did post about on Twitter today. We are in a situation now in the world where people are complaining about snowflakes, being worried about the environment, about LGBTQ plus communities getting fair representation and fair rights. There is the new thing at the moment about people kicking off that Ariel from The Little Mermaid is now a person of color. And all this is happening from the same group of people that are kicking off that two people jumped a queue. The fuck are we doing in the world, sir?
Do you know what? Like, I didn't realize until I went on Facebook over the last few weeks how many nationalists I'm friends with, or people who identify as royalists or whatever. And like, obviously, nobody thinks it's funny that the Queen passed away. But it's that thing of like every single thing now. I've noticed this, like you'll know this as well, because you're a similar age to me. I swear when I was a kid that this wasn't a thing. We would not have this, or maybe it was, maybe because media wasn't as accessible, the internet wasn't as, this huge booming, machine that it is now. But it just felt like people just had opinions and then got on with it. And if you disagreed with someone, it was like you just disagreed, but you cracked on because it really wasn't that big a deal. And now the culture is very much, you've got an opinion, I don't like it, therefore I'm offended by it. Like, people don't seem to be able to differentiate between being offended or just disagreeing. So you can disagree with something, doesn't mean you have to be offended by it. And the famous line my mate Nick always used to say to me is offense is taken, not given. I assume you're talking about the this morning stuff, or Good Morning Britain, or whatever it is. The I think it's Holly Willoughby and Philip Schofield. They went to where the Queen was in wake or lying in state or whatever they call it. And basically they were there in a media capacity representing ITV. And the idea was that they were going to run a piece and record it and then show it on the show, I believe that was meant to air today. And like people are basically saying they jumped the queue and, they should be fired on the spot, and they were disrespecting all the people, and they didn't say their, send their love, and they didn't wait around, just finding things to be angry about. What's your take on the whole thing?
I'm a contrary fucker when it comes to things like this. I can argue with someone who I agree with, because for me, they missed the point of their own argument. I have lost friends through doing this. And it's not a good look, but the reason I do it is because I find that the truth isn't binary. The truth isn't one way or the other. It lies in the middle. And with this whole thing, the truth is in the middle. Should they have pushed in? No, they shouldn't have done. Would anyone have pushed in if they had the chance? Fucking right they would. Someone doesn't want to stand there for fucking 14 hours to do fuck all. Just go and look at a dead lady. It's not ideal. If someone said, oh, by the way, you can push in now, come over here, I'll get you in and out in 2 minutes. Anyone would bite their hand off to do that. These guys, even if the whole we're doing this for this morning isn't true, they managed to do it. They had the opportunity. Why wouldn't you take it?
Do you think that a lot of the offense, and it's kind of you can throw this over so many different like ideals and flashpoints in our society. Do you think that a lot of people get offended more so subconsciously because they didn't do it themselves, and if they had done it, they would have been less offended?
I don't know. Because again, in that type of situation, it's not easy to go and push in because of who you are. Very, very difficult to do that. People are saying, "Oh, David,
they pushed in as well," like because they're, like the thing is, like you get very contrasted. the media will tell you what it wants you to hear. There will be facts in there. There'll also be other things that maybe not necessarily are fact. I'm looking forward to the conspiracy portion of the podcast. That's going to be exciting. Especially in Peterborough, where they seem to have a large amount of flat earthers. That is a good time. Just an hour down the road from beautiful Lincolnshire. It's one of those things where, like, I might offend people. I don't honestly see what the problem is. I don't honestly, I don't give a shit either. That sounds awful to say, but I don't care. Like, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, was anyone personally affected by this? Like, did they cost somebody the ability, for instance, to say their prayers, or, you know, did someone have to wait 10 minutes extra because they may have possibly, like, you know, I don't really see why everyone. The thing is, the reaction to it is what bugs me. So even people that I'm close to, wrestling promoters, friends, they're on social media today saying they deserve to get fired, bin them off, and all this. I'm like, that seems like an incredibly drastic response.
Yes, very much so. And considering we are in the world of cancel culture being a thing, and whether people think it is a thing or not, that is a conversation that needs to be had at some point. We're two straight white men. It shouldn't fucking come from us, but we're here. We might as well.
Are we white? Outrageous.
Sorry, whitish.
Whitish, yes.
Yeah, I'll go whitish.
I always call back to my friend Fallon when I used to work at Royal Mail, who came up to me once and had this slip of card, and she was looking at me like this, like, and I was just like, "What are you doing?" And she got a color chart from Wix.
Nice.
And she went, medium caramel. I was like, "Thank you."
Medium caramel. Should have fucking called it that.
Yeah, medium caramel. That could be the name of the actual podcast if we name each one of them. Medium caramel.
I like it.
So, you know, full disclosure, I'm half Egyptian, which is why I have a alternative appearance to some, but a lot of people have all kinds of things. A lot of people think I'm English. A lot of people think I'm white. It's interesting, actually, how people look at me, but that's another subject entirely.
We'll come on to that at some point, I'm sure.
I've got to be honest. I use the term snowflake a lot on my podcast. One thing I'm really proud of on WrestlePlug is the fact that it's a completely uncensored format. I don't feel like there are many wrestlers, because everyone's very on edge in wrestling a lot of the time, especially since speaking out, and rightfully so. We need to protect people's safety, but we also should never ever compromise our abilities to share our opinions in a really honest format. That's what scares me, is that thing, like, you can be bombastic and against the edge of what things are in society without being an arsehole. You know, people always say, I'm not an arsehole, I'm not a cunt, I just say it how it is. I mean, there's a lot of different shades there to what that argument presents. But for me, I'm just like, I honestly don't give a fuck. I don't. I honestly think this is like, as far as like news goes and things that should trouble you, this is well down the pecking order.
Oh, yeah. Very much so. We live in a cost of living crisis. There are people who I know of personally whose rights are being taken away from them because they weren't in the right body at birth. There's all that type of shit going all over the world. But people pushing in a queue is something to be massively offended by. And apparently Ricky Gervais saying things about the trans community, it's fine. Get over it. Not quite. The bit in the middle, as I said before, the bit in the middle is the truth. You've got a situation where I'm now just talking shit.
That's the whole point.
Yeah, but it's a difficult one, because the word snowflake for me it's an annoying word, just like the word woke is an annoying word.
Oh,
not because it's a trigger word, not because it's anything other. It's fucking lazy. It's just lazy. That's all it is. Not from your
design for, though, aren't they? Like, I feel like these labels, these buzzwords, these stereotypes, regardless of whether you're talking about religion or race or political correctness or political beliefs or whatever, there's a million subjects you can cover with that. I feel like they're designed to just throw people into a bracket so it's easier to talk about it. Because otherwise we have to do the hard work, which is sit down with every single person and understand them from their point of view, which is kind of what we should do, at least in my opinion, is that thing of, like, for instance, mental health. We both suffer tremendously with our mental health in different formats, in different ways, and some similarities too. When you go to a doctor, or if you go to the hospital or a therapist or whatever, there is a very blanket mentality because they simply do not have the financial means to be able to isolate you as an individual. But that in itself is, cognizant of society, because what happens is that we sit there and think, well, okay, I'm going to call you woke, or I'm going to call you a snowflake, or I'm going to call you a melt, or whatever, because I don't have the time or cognitive function to be able to sit down and take time to understand why you feel the way you do, or why you have an argument, or why you have a debate, or why you have an opinion that maybe differs from other people, or why for instance, it's very woke to, put your pronouns in your profile. And I'm like, okay, cool. If you want to, that's fine. It absolutely doesn't affect me. You can identify by whatever. That's never bothered me in the slightest. But to just say, oh, that person's woke. Okay. That might be your definition of what it is, but it might not be to somebody else, which means that immediately that word loses a lot of its value to me.
Mm-hmm. And I was called woke for that exact reason. I said that I was all inclusive, which I am. I am an inclusive person. And there's someone at work said, "Oh, you woke. You just woke." I'm not woke. I'm just not a prick. That to me is all it is. Just don't be a prick. Disagree with someone. You're more than welcome to disagree with fucking anything. If you're a prick, that's where I'm gonna, judge your fucking stuff on. If you're calling me woke for just not pandering to people who shout the loudest, fucking more than welcome, but it's just not being a bellend.
I'm just not a fan of labels. I don't know if that's my upbringing. Like, when I was younger, I got a lot of racist abuse, a lot of it. And,
how come you're white?
I know, right? Medium caramel, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where, like, growing up in an Egyptian household when I was a little kid, and then obviously moving into just a predominantly white household once that, my dad had left and buggered off. It was one of those things where a lot of people were just, like, I used to hear, and I still do now, I hear a lot of this, like, it's either outright aggression, so it's like, go back to where you came from, why don't you fuck off back to the Middle East, or blah, 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 or it's the alternative of making light or jokes at my expense, which I do as well. For anyone who's listened to the podcast, I do that a lot. And, they'll say things like, oh, like, I used to be a postman for 17 years and I get customers all the time saying, oh, this package isn't going to explode, is it? No, but okay. Guys at work who I got on with very well will come up to me, oh, what were you doing in France last night when there was a terrorist attack in France, or wherever it might be, things that are designed to be brutal humor. Now, I take a lot out of a pinch of salt. I'm very good at gauging whether someone's being genuinely aggressive or trying to demean me, as opposed to just having a bit of a giggle at my expense. And because of the amount of shit and shithousery that I engage in, I tend not to make too much of a big deal out of it. But it is that thing of like, okay, so, what you're doing is you're engaging in utter vitriol. You're not asking important questions or valid issues within my culture or my society, or why you perceive me to look different or anything like that. What you're essentially saying is, I can't be bothered with that, so I'm just going to go right to the device of being a humorist or whatever. But the reason I bring it up is because of the labels. I have loads of people who say to me, oh, you got a very liberal mentality. No, I don't think so. But I don't like left and right. I think it's a load of bollocks. I do. Because for me, it's that thing of like, it's always divisive. So, oh, I'm liberal. I'm left wing. I support Labour, the Green Party. the Liberal Democrats. I'm right wing, I'm Tory, I'm BNP, I'm, you know, whatever, insert UKIP, insert gobshite pie. The really sad thing, I think, is that people are so hung up on identifying in one of these brackets or these labels because it's group mentality. There's safety in that number, there's safety in that bubble, you know. And Donald Trump was a good example of that. He was somebody who, the reason he was so popular, in my opinion, is because he was able to create this aura of, I have a certain way of thinking, and because I'm this high up, because I'm in this predominant position of power, it then empowers the little people, or, you know, the average working class people, to share the same values without being judged too much by a society that they might have been judged by before.
I get that very much so. And the whole, I mean, I would count myself as a liberal person. I haven't even drunk that much today. I'd count myself as a liberal person, but I think anyone that defines themselves as that, anyone that defines themselves as a type of person, you're just dull. Someone who counts themselves as very right wing. I take it back to dating profiles and stuff like that. On Tinder, you know for a fact you're not going to get on with someone if one of their first things is no Tories. It's like, yeah, I agree with you, but that's what you want to put on your dating profile.
Yeah, no, like,
you know, what's the fucking? You're defining someone's worth based on a political party that they may agree with you on 90% of the shit that you think, but because that extra 10% isn't there, you're just gonna completely fucking write them off, which is exactly what you say the other half does.
they all do it. That's
yeah.
what bugs me, is that they all do it.
Mhm.
Because the right wing, the overlying sort of sensibilities between them is that, you know, they believe in wealth and prominence and, you know, upper class and things like that. And they basically sort of say, ha, people on the left are woke, they're snowflakes, they're weak, you know, they can't handle anything. But then on the other side of things, the liberals, I almost feel like they're exactly the same, just with different values. And if you don't understand what I mean, like they both engage, and that's not obviously to say everyone's like that. There's always going to be differences and things like that. But if you throw a blanket over it, which is ironically enough what we're saying we don't like, you do look at both sides. Like, this is why I consider myself not to really subscribe to these labels, because just from looking at social media, the amount of hatred and aggression that is displayed by the left whenever somebody says something that's ill-fitting or not suited to their demographic or their belief system, they engage in the same level of hatred, just they disguise it in a different way because they believe, because society deems it that they're more politically correct. So they're able to kind of get away with this aggression from the standpoint of, yeah, but the difference is, you know, I'm standing up for trans rights. So it doesn't matter if I assault a politician or throw an egg at somebody or throw a milkshake over someone or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but by doing that, what you're essentially saying to me is that you have no faith or values in what you already believe in, which is being a leftist, being a liberal, being somebody who respects, or, you know, they say all the time, we respect everyone's boundaries, we're all inclusive. To be all inclusive means that you have to accept that there are people who do not share your values, share your beliefs. That's where true equality comes from, this ability of not really identifying someone by anything but who they are and their belief system, making a judgment every single time based on their individuality. We don't do that anymore. If I go out to certain, like you say on Tinder, if I go on a, you know, if I swipe right on somebody and they message me and the first thing they say is, what's your political beliefs? And I say, you know, I wouldn't, but if I said like, oh, I'm a liberal, and they go, oh, I'm a Tory, so I'm not going to speak to you. That's just fucking stupid then, isn't it?
No, exactly. And that's why I argue so inherently with people I agree with, because I do think that when you get to that point of being so aggressive with someone that doesn't think that the same way about you, you're missing the point of your own argument. People have kicked off with J.K. Rowling being as disgusting as she is,
Mm.
and Graham Linehan completely ruining his career just because fuck knows why. I agree that they shouldn't have those beliefs. I agree that they should be more broad and more open-minded, but bringing down everything that they have ever worked for and bringing down them as people, you're missing the point of what you think. You want people to be included. Conversations need to be had, and actual conversations, not just arguments. And you're not going to fucking get that if the first thing that you see on dating, as simple as a dating profile, first thing you see, liberal, Tory, vegan. If you're defining yourself as that, if that's your characteristic, you've got very little in your life left.
Yeah, which is why that app is so bloody difficult to use at the best of times. It's, I think, one thing that really stands out to me as well is how we, like, whenever we see, so these are very rare occurrences now. So you'll see videos or flashpoints where somebody has been racist to somebody, or somebody has been abusive, and this person, instead of retaliating in a means that we would deem acceptable or at least understand from a self-defense capability, they might sort of turn around and say, okay, why do you think I'm an N-word? Why do you think I'm a, the P word or whatever? You can put your, your brain to it and know what I'm talking about. And then they'll try and educate them on why they think that way and stuff like that. And we look at it and we say, oh, how incredibly tolerant they are to take all that abuse and not snap back and things like that. I'm like, no, that's actually what we all should be doing, is trying to educate, because there must have been a point in society where we weren't so divisive about each other, where we weren't so, even if it's all the way back to the cavemen or Adam and Eve or whatever you believe, there must have been a point where we were just people. And at some point, whether it be religion, you can hang your hat on a million different things as to what the problem is. A lot of people go for the religion, which is fine. That's cool. I personally don't agree with that. I think that religion is as divisive as it is excellent in certain terms. Faith has been used incredibly well to show great triumph in our society, and on the flip side, it's also been used to massacre lots of people. So it's nothing's ever black and white. It's just not. And for me, I'm sitting here thinking, at what point did we stop bothering to educate people? At what point did we just think, can't be bothered, just gonna go for it now, like just gonna, I don't know, just kind of hammer it home and just be abusive instead, or just say, no, fuck you, you're wrong, fuck you, die, whatever, and just stop.
I agree. I had arguments. I was up at Edinburgh this August, and I opened up my Twitter, and Jerry Sadowitz, the comedian who is very offensive but also very, very funny. A lot of the stuff that he says don't agree with, don't find funny, but there is a lot of stuff in there that is hilarious. And as a technician, both in jokes and in magic, he is phenomenal. He was his second date on the 2 dates he was on at Edinburgh was cancelled because of stuff that he said the day before, and also the fact he got his knob out in front of audience members. And
that's a little bit more concerning, isn't it?
Yeah, that same. Now, apparently there was context behind it.
Okay.
What the fucking context was, no idea. But people don't look for that.
No.
But on the same day, people were kicking off that Eddie Izzard now wants to be referred to as she, which is well within her fucking rights to. Yeah. She's been a transvestite comic since the early 90s. So, unsurprisingly, all this. And I happen to say this on Twitter, and the amount of abuse I got. And when I was trying to talk to people about it, of like, well, why do you think it's not that simple? the things I got back were abuse, saying, "Oh, a man is talking, everyone must shut up." I think that's your defense, just insults and vague shitness. I know I'm the last person that should be fucking listened to. I'm an absolute idiot. But the beauty about being an idiot is you just see the simple side of it. And I think that's where people don't look anymore. Like the conversation about trans rights and shit is something that massively needs to be had.
Mm.
People complaining that women don't have safe spaces anymore, like toilets and changing rooms and stuff. I know of people that have transitioned from one to the other, and I don't think that they're going through years of personal pain to get to the point where they are now comfortable identifying as such, just so they can see a woman's undercarriage or get a peek at someone over a toilet stall. I don't think it's going to happen. But apparently there are.
Sorry, carry on.
No, say apparently there are things on the other side where apparently if you identify, you can write that you now identify, and then you are therefore a woman. The conversation needs to be had with people, but it shouldn't be had with just one group of people. The trans community and the community against it should be talking, but in the right way, not just abusing each other, which they do. They very much do. There are people from the trans community that I support that I'm just like, just talk to them. I know that they do not want to hear what you have to say, but if you talk to them and if you be better than them, they will be shown that they're talking shit. And the only thing that they don't really like are not being the most important things in the room anymore, which is what it comes down to. All the fucking woke stuff, all the people being snowflakes. It's just now the straight right white man, including yourself, is they're all. I'm going to keep going at it. I am.
First of
because
all, not straight, but thank you. Second of all,
I don't think anyone is. I genuinely don't think anyone is.
No, I think it's a case of unlocking it for a lot of people. But I identify as pansexual, and because I find a lot of different people sexually attractive, men, women. I find it's a terrifying thing for a lot of people to say. I'm not that bothered by it. I find people who are transgender quite attractive. There are people that I found very sexually attractive who are transgender, whether they be transitioning or whether they be fully transitioned or not. So yeah, no. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out.
No,
there. I don't know why my
genuinely
brain can't handle the idea of being called a straight white male. It's like what? And that maybe that's indicative of the problem with society. That shouldn't be an issue anyway.
Exactly.
But it's that thing of that's considered the worst demographic, isn't it? The straight white male.
True, but it is true, and because that has been at the top of the society ladder. Now that they're no longer the top of society ladder, that's when things are kicking off. No fucking bullshit. You've had your turn. Just move a little bit to one side. Let other people
You don't have to move down. You move to the side.
Exactly. That's all it is.
And that's the same with anything. So I predominantly make my money from videography and wrestling, as well as, dabbling in everything else in wrestling. I don't at any point hate the idea of somebody coming in who may be better at their job than me. Like, for instance, when I wrestle, I'm okay. I know for a fact there's always I don't look at Levi Muir, for instance, or a Sheik El Sham and think, fuck you. You're better looking than me. You're more shredded. And because you're better than me, I'm now going to go on the offensive. If anything, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, what can I learn from you? Or what can I garner from you to then make myself better? I don't at any point begrudge anyone being more talented than me, because that's just part of human nature. There are things I can do that loads of people can't do, and they think I'm amazing for it. Loads of things I look at people and I think, wow, I wish I could do that. But I don't at any point think, because I can't do that, I'm going to target you or attack your way of living or the way you identify. You know, if I see a trans wrestler who's better than me, I don't think fucking tranny or use some derogatory term that's unnecessary. I just think I don't even. I know it sounds very. People are going to say you're woke for saying this, but I don't see them as a transgender wrestler. If they want to use that, and if they want to sort of grow their you know, their notoriety through that so that they can raise self-awareness, just like I do, saying that I'm one of the few Middle Eastern wrestlers and commentators. That's cool. But I don't ever sit there and think, right, because you now identify as a certain, you know, gender or bracket or whatever it might be, I never attack somebody for that. So, you know, in a big roundabout way and a long tangent, basically, you don't have to move out of the way. You don't have to move down. You just have to move to the side and make room for other people. And when you're in a huge fucking space like we are, there is plenty of fucking room. So move your arse and let other people enjoy as much as you do. And that, of course, is where capitalism is a big thing as well, because these people don't want to share. They don't want to move aside. They want to hoard. They want to protect. They want to envelop what they have, so that people like us can't earn that. And it's the same in everything. Wrestling is a very toxic profession for that. A lot of people are like, don't touch my spot, you know, don't take my job. I look at it as, if I'm good enough, I'll get my work. And if someone else is good, they deserve to get their work too.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I mean, I looked when I did the Coliseum show, I was the host, but I've always been a ring announcer. Fucking loved being the host. I saw Jessie and I was jealous of how good she was, because she is an absolutely beautiful woman. She is absolutely amazing. She's so kind and nice and energetic, and she is shit tons better than me. My reaction to that was, look how fucking good she is. And it's because that's where I am. I will always try and push forward people who are better than me, because there are very few that are worse. But it's because I'd like to think
that, either, though, is it? No, that's you denigrating yourself for your character. But the bottom line is, you wouldn't have got that job if you weren't very good at what you do.
I still doubt that he's got the right person, to be honest.
Well, you think he's got a different mark?
Yeah, I think that he's completely out. I think he's just gone, nah, I don't think it's the right one, but we've got him now.
Well, he's too far in now, so he's like,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
I thought that as well. I was like, wait a minute, there's like 50 commentators in this country who have done the job for like 20 years, and you asked me, that prick from Wrestle, fuck to that, and I'm like, but then how are you gonna? There aren't many Nixes or Aeron Nixes running around at all, so yeah,
but I do think that pushing forward people rather than pulling away from them not only does them good, but does you good as well. Because it's one thing I learned at that show and at Odyssey as well. People are enthusiastic about others, and when they're enthusiastic about others, the place becomes nicer because of it.
Yeah.
And because it's a nice place, everyone wants each other to do well. And when everyone does well, it comes back on you more. If you're in a show that you're doing really well at and everyone else is at utter shit because no one's having a good time and no one's enjoying themselves and no one likes each other, yeah, you may look good, but it's like having a really, really lovely piece of gold leaf on a hunk of shit. You've got to bring everyone up to your level, or you've got to bring yourself up to their level, which I like to think I did the second one at Coliseum. I'd like to think I brought myself up to the talent of not just the wrestlers, but you guys as well. I wasn't as experienced as you guys were in different promotions and stuff, and you guys brought a hell of a lot more out of me than I ever thought possible. It was beautiful to have.
I was the same though. Like, for me, like, it was very like, there's nothing wrong with being jealous. I think there's this thing of like, oh, jealousy. It's how you use that. So you know, I'll look at KM Lane, who's one of my personal best friends in wrestling. And he is beautiful and shredded, and he's got gorgeous hair, and he's a very sexy man. And I look at him and I think, oh man, I wish I looked like that. So how can I get closer to that level of quality? Well, simply by working as hard as he does, not by denigrating him. This is that thing of like, we would rather, it's a very positive frame of mind for me, which is surprising, but it's that thing of, I have two choices. And this is the problem in our society. Most people choose the first one, which is, I can't be as good as that person, or I can't make as much money as that person. I can't be as successful as that person. So I'm just going to run them down and denigrate them. We hate success. I've noticed it's a very big trait of British consumerism in general, is that we look at, you know, David Beckham was a really good example of this. When he went to LA Galaxy and made stonking amounts of money, we were all like, fuck him. Like, you know, look at him, the swaggy piece of shit, blah, blah. And it's just like, why do you hate the idea that he was so successful? Probably because you know that you won't earn that amount of money, but that doesn't mean you can't be a success. That doesn't mean you can't grow. So if I look at, you know, obviously it's a extremely wild scenario and example. So for me, it's like, right, there are other videographers in wrestling. There are other graphic designers in wrestling. There are other wrestlers. There are other referees. There are other MCs. There are other, you know, you name it. I've done it. And it's that thing of, I look at them all, and at no point do I think, right, I'm going to drag KM Lane down a few notches by slagging him off on my podcast, simply because then he might appear to be more on my level. No, you just come across as dickhead giving him shit because you're insecure about what you are. So what I choose to do is actively try and improve or be better. I go out and invest in more equipment. If I, you know, Troy Grant, who's one of the camera guys at Coliseum, has these beautiful, expensive cameras. Now, Troy has worked so fucking hard to get his equipment and has worked so hard to be one of the best names in videography. And ironically enough, not in wrestling, actually outside of it. He predominantly makes his money outside of wrestling. At no point did I feel, you know, I said to him, like, God, I'd love that Canon you've got over there, like with the whole setup, with the rig and the tracking devices and stuff like that. But at no point did I say, you know, fuck that guy for having better equipment than me, because me and him do very different styles anyway. He shoots a very cinematic style. I shoot a very kind of road runner style, like to follow the action. And we both do very well at what we do, because we're not competing with each other for room. We're actually competing, you know, alongside each other to both be better. That's the difference. And unfortunately, 99% of people will choose the first option, which is denigrate, destroy, disrespect, whatever it might be, with the hope of them being elevated through that. But you don't get elevated. You stay where you are, whereas that person stays where they are. And nobody wins.
And I think I've got this thing where I love, the reason I try and promote these people as much as possible, it's why any chance I get to say that Jesse's fucking amazing, I do it, because I love being in awe. I don't want to be I'd love to be as good as these people. I'm not going to actively try and be as good as those people to try and take anything away from them, because I love being in awe of others. You know, whether that be in wrestling with someone like her, whether it be in comedy with people like Daniel Kitson or Brendan Burns, or whether it be in radio with people like Mark Radcliffe and Mark Riley and that ilk. I love being in awe of them. And I think it's a shame that we don't do that more. We think of it as competition rather than something to enjoy.
Yeah, we don't really want to aspire to be anything other than what we already are.
Yeah.
Like, I have a huge chip on my shoulder with everything I do, because I'm desperate to improve. Like, because if you don't improve, people aren't going to use you either. They, you know, I get a lot of compliments, and it's a difficult balance, because you can take it in so many different ways. You can be that guy who hears a compliment and thinks, yeah, I'm the bollocks, I'm the best. And then you kind of become arrogant, or you become, you know, laden with a certain attitude where you believe that you're entitled. But then there's also the flip side of it where, you know, a lot of people will compliment me and I'm like, yeah, but I'm a piece of shit, so don't worry about it. And that's not good either. Because like at least with that, you're only damaging yourself. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. We all need to do better and love ourselves more and appreciate our little wins and things like that, because we will have some. But at least with that, it's that thing of, okay, that's just a me problem. I'm not outwardly disrespecting anybody. I'm just like, no, whatever. Like, I'm not that great, but thank you. And there's a certain, that's where the humble line is difficult, because yeah, you have to be humble, but you also have to kind of acknowledge when you're doing something really well. Like, I have to be humble and professional when I go to all these shows. Today I got contacted by a new promoter who's like, hey, your stuff's really good, I want you for my shows. And I'm like, awesome, that's another brand new horizon for me, working with new people. But it's also that thing of having the right balance. Yes, I'm still humble. Yes, I still recognize that at any point it can go away, and that, I'm lucky to have that. But I also recognize that I've worked hard to get it too. So I have to sit there, and in my brain, there needs to be that portion that says, well done, you worked hard for that. So now enjoy it, but keep working. Excuse me, my Amazon Echo is trying to interrupt me because pie is ready. So what I'll do is I'll pause it and then I'll edit it. Ladies and gentlemen, the pie is now cooked. So yeah, no, I think for me it's important that you'll know this because you've had some very heavy conversations with me recently. It's very obvious that I don't recognize my self-worth and my self-esteem or my value enough. And that needs to be better. I'm doing a good job with that. Being on the correct medication helps. Being surrounded by the right people helps. Nadia Sapphire, I spoke to her yesterday, and she said, if you surround yourself with alcoholics and drug abusers and things like that, what kind of traits are you going to pick up? Those people that are toxic or dependent on things. If you surround yourself with good, positive people who want you to do well, while also trying your hardest to encourage them, you're going to be a better person for that.
Oh, definitely. But I mean, so by the sounds of it, you didn't do, when you were contacted by the new promoter, you didn't do what I did when I was contacted by Coliseum, and my first email back to them was, are you sure you've got the right person? Which is genuinely the first thing I said.
No, I haven't done that yet. Well, there has been a couple of times where I've been honest with people and said, you'd probably be better off using this person, whether it be because they're cheaper or because they're closer to home or because they're better than me, which is fine. But we also have to recognize there's a reason why people chose us in the first place. And that is not just in work, that's in relationships. A lot of us are a nightmare, If I meet a beautiful woman or a beautiful man and they're interested in me or they want to have sex with me or whatever, it's important that I don't just immediately go to that thing of like, oh, I don't deserve this. You must have made a mistake. Because then they're sitting there thinking, if you think that, then they're going to think that as well. They're going to think, well, it must be a mistake then. Because I think this person's a strong, confident, sexy person or whatever it might be that they like about you. And then if you don't display those traits, they're going to be like, oh, okay, was that all a facade? Was that not real? And then they sort of doubt their decision making, which is thoroughly understandable. So in a roundabout way, try and believe in yourself a bit more, because if you don't, people aren't going to believe in you.
I do agree with that to a point. I am, but on the other side, whereas I am genuinely curious as to why people think I'm good, I am also very, very proud of what I put out there. I said it on the podcast we did together, which is available on WrestlePlug. Go to YouTube and find it. You will enjoy it. I am a shambles. I am a mess of a human. I don't prepare as much as I should. And I fucking adore that I bring all those things to a show that I enjoy doing, and to wrestling that I enjoy doing. And the fact that people don't know what they'll get when I step in a ring, apart from a good show, I'm very, very proud of that.
There's beauty in chaos.
Oh, very much so. Very, very much so. And I mean, I'll look at something like, Reeves and Mortimer, where you look a bit of Vic and Bob, where it looks absolute fucking pandemonium. Yeah, they write all of that. Every single bit of that is written and it looks off the cuff. I don't have that talent. I just have to bring it up from my depths and see where it kind of goes to. But I'm proud of what I do. And it is having that bit of self-worth. It's having that thing of, I, there's a reason I'm here. There's a reason that people still want me to do it.
Yeah, I really like organic stuff. I
Mm,
really like stuff that happens that maybe wasn't meant to happen or happens for a reason. Like wrestling's a good example of that, because what we're doing is trying to present something as real, even though we all know it's predetermined. And it's that thing of, we're creating a show. But like, for instance, I like pantomime itself.
mm.
I always remember as a kid going to see Aladdin, and the main bad guy appears on a balcony, and he's like, all this kind of stuff. And some person in the crowd just shouts, "Jump!" And he just turns around, very blasé, goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce my agent?" And then he carries on. And it's that thing of like, I wouldn't have got that if someone hadn't tried to be a smartass. I wouldn't have got that little moment of joy from that at 11 years old if someone hadn't said something and he hadn't done something witty and off the cuff. That's not something that's planted. That's something that's just happened organically. At least you'd like to think so. And for me, all the best stuff that I'm living in life is actually the things that either aren't meant to happen or are done on the cuff. And wrestling is one of the reasons why I'm so enamored with the world of wrestling. And even though it angers me and upsets me and makes me cry and makes me laugh and all these different things, the reason I keep coming back to it is because at any given moment, these things will happen.
Mm-hmm.
There will be an off the cuff fan who tries to hit Tate Mayfairs with their crutches because she's insulted that he's a very, very good bad guy. There will be the thirsty mums at the back of the room trying to hit on Rex Armstrong because he's very confident. There will be so many different moments where you just think that wouldn't happen if that person wasn't there in that exact time frame. And I want more of that from life. Those moments of like, because that's an individual moment. I don't want anything that's routine. I don't want anything that's processed. I don't want to listen to anything. Why do we listen to music? Because we want to emote. We want to feel that music in that moment. For me, music is all about, what am I listening to and why am I listening to it? And what does it mean to me? When I'm really depressed, I listen to Johnny Cash. It's quite self-affirming because even though he talks about a lot of very miserable things, it brings a relatability. And you sit there and you think, oh, do you know what? In that moment where I want to cry or I'm upset, I can listen to Folsom Prison Blues and I can listen to that song and know that he is sat there singing to some of the most dangerous criminals and reprobates and evil people, but he's also talking about, and the reason that's so famous is because they all identified with him in that moment. He sung about things that they all respected, doing cocaine, shooting your wife, whatever. These aren't good things, but the music itself brings relatability. It brings emotion to the table. And it's the same with anything you think. You'll recognize music from certain events or certain moments, whether they be happy or sad or indifferent, and then they will trigger a memory within you. And it's that thing of, that's, for me, the biggest values in my life are the moments where I remember something or I think of something in that moment based on the surroundings, the sensory nature of it. It's really interesting that being sensory and sensory dispositions are so crucial to how we live our lives and how we feel, and we take all of that for granted. I can smell a chicken and vegetable pie because it reminds me that my mum used to make them when I was 5. I can smell the leaves on, or I can smell the basil plants, and that reminds me of being a kid and picking basil in a field or whatever. Whatever it might be, smelling fresh strawberries and reminding yourself that you used to go and pick them in a field at a ridiculous time of day and eat most of them, not actually put any in your punnet just so you could get your money's worth. These different little things that are so quintessentially part of our society and part of our identity. And I feel like we're just shoving them aside in favor of this mechanical repetition, this mechanical routine. And that is one of the big reasons why I walked away from a very steady job. I hated being a postman. It was the shittest job on earth. I really hope that someday Royal Mail contact me and go, why is it shit? So I can just tell them how fucking garbage they are. But it's that thing of, I didn't want to be another number. I didn't want to be stuck in a machine. I was desperate to get out. I was terrified of just being a cog. And then when I falter or I fail or I die for whatever reason, they get another cog and they go, and away they go. And you are nothing to them but a disregarded mechanism. Terrifying concept.
It is. But we've all got conditioned to be in that mentality. And anything that doesn't go with that mentality, we immediately kind of write off as something that doesn't matter, or something that's not important, or as something that's stupid, or going back onto the conversation we were first having, something that shouldn't happen. You know? I mean, I've done fucking weird things in my life. Not in a kind of, oh, I've wanked in a pub. Nothing like that. But because I liked music and I liked entertainment at school, I got involved with a radio station. Because I was someone who wasn't self-aware enough. I emailed a band that I really liked that were very, very famous to ask if I could interview them. And at 17, they said yes. Because I did that, I ended up interviewing more people. And because I interviewed one band, I got to see their support band. Because I got to see their support band, I got to know people who I got to listen to people that they knew. Because I got in touch with those people that they knew, I got involved with their family. And because I got involved with their family, I have ended up on stage at the Leeds Festival in front of 4,000 people singing a song that fucking loads of people were singing back to us. I have traveled up and down this country following bands. I have made a documentary that I cannot find for the fucking life of me. I went for my 30th birthday. I traveled up the west coast of America by myself to stay in the house of a person that's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. All because at 17, I was fucking stupid enough to ask Real Big Fish if they wanted an interview.
Love Real Big Fish.
I saw basketball.
That's how I learned them.
Yeah,
basketball.
And I saw them perform Beer, and I saw them perform Take on Me, and I went, that is my type of music. I like that. I want to listen to more of that. And then that's kind of where things took off.
That's so
But
cool.
But
by the way, basketball is really funny. Everyone should watch that.
It's a fucking brilliant film. Genuinely one of my favorite films.
Modern kids, they don't get it. It drives me. I was in a party with a few of my mates last night, and I was doing you probably will recognize the Fast Show, and you know the skits with the suits, the tailors. It's still to me one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
I saw you do it on the podcast, your 600th one, and I automatically went off her. I loved her all the way through, and I went, no, I can't be friends with that person.
That's her in a nutshell, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
these Islanders, honestly. It was that thing of, and I was trying to explain this to the young guys who were in the Xbox party with me last night, because you know, some of them are a lot younger than me, and obviously I'm helping out guys that are maybe 15, 20 years more younger. And I'm sort of saying, you know, and I said, oh, what's this? It's really funny. And they're just like, what the fuck is this? And I'm like, it's the Fast Show, man. Like, it's one of the greatest comedy sketch shows of all time that we've produced. It's up there for me with the, you know, the ambassadors of comedy like Monty Python and things like that.
Definitely.
And then he started watching it a bit, and then he got it because he recognized the guy from Afterlife is in it. You know, the big fat lad that they take the piss out of. He's really young in that. Johnny Depp's in it. There's loads of very famous comedians that applied their trade from that show. But it's really funny. Like I enjoy showing, but like I still love Celebrity Deathmatch, and they've started putting all of the reruns on YouTube now, so you can watch them back. And it's a thing called MTV Vault on YouTube. Brilliant if you want to watch.
I'll have to look at it.
And I was watching it last night. They had the Beavis and Butthead one, which was just hilarious. And I love Beavis and Butthead, and they're bringing that back. There's a need for nostalgia in our lives. And I think it's because it reminds us of our happier moments and our more sensory times. We have memories that are associated with that. And it's also apparently a real trait of people who have severe anxiety, is that I noticed this the other day and I almost felt personally attacked when I was told this. Someone said to me, are you one of those, they asked me, I said, are you one of those people that when you watch a Netflix series, if you enjoyed it a lot, you'll go back and watch it again and again and again? And I do this with Archer and Big Mouth and
Same.
Bourdain and a few other things. They say it's a classic trait of anxiety, because what it actually is you finding a level of comfort because you already know, because of that fear of the unknown. So with that, you already know. So you find comfort in watching it back because it makes it easier for you to stay within that bubble of anxiety without it affecting you too much. It's almost like a coping mechanism to kind of reflect from the anxiety. You know, because people always say to me, "Why are you watching that? You've watched that like 15 times." I'm like, I don't know. I just find comfort in it. And I guess that's apparently, well, at least according to, you know, high-end therapists who probably know a lot more than I do, it's to do with my levels of anxiety. So.
I'm exactly the same. I will get to the night times, and even when I've got the kids here, when they go to bed, I am in this bubble of not knowing what to do not know what to do with myself. And I will go back to those series. Another one that you need to watch is one called Letterkenny, which is fucking beautiful.
Never heard of it.
It's just stunning. It's a Canadian series. I will send you some stuff. But something that I've learned through all of that, and that I'm trying to instill in my kids, is to embrace the silliness. So again, when I was young, when I was younger, my parents didn't really want me to do that stuff of going to interview bands. They wanted me to do it, but they wanted me not just to do that. Whereas if I had my opportunity, I would have just done that, and I would be a lot further along in my career than where I am. Not blaming them for it at all. A lot of it is down to my own self-worth, my own anxiety and shit. But we instill in our kids when we're young that they need to look to the future, and that they need to become an adult and become that type of person. And we don't, because we want to make them safe, and we don't want them to make mistakes, because them making mistakes means they're in a worse position. We don't want to make our kids in worse positions. But if we keep on doing that, we don't let them have the opportunities that, like you were saying before, come from spontaneity, come from that thing of, I shouldn't be doing this. I was dragged on stage at the Leeds Festival by my friend Greg, and I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this. I got a message, the first ever show, so it was a band called the Bouncing Souls, who were supporting the Dropkick Murphys in Manchester. Yeah, well, they were supporting the Dropkicks in Manchester, and it was the first time I'd met Greg, and we got on like a house on fire because I'd been speaking to his wife Shanti for years. We were good friends through radio and shit. And I went there and I watched the gig, and suddenly I got a text message from someone from my friend's uni that just went, "Why the fuck are you on the stage?" And I just said, "Oh, it's my friend's Greg's back." She went, "You're friends with Greg?" I went, "Yeah." And those things shouldn't happen. But if you're not given that opportunity, they'll never happen. You've got to embrace the spontaneity. You've got to embrace silliness. It's one thing I try and instill in my kids, but also in, I work for a bank. When I talk to younger people, I try and tell them that, because I genuinely think that the more adult we try and get, and the more adult we have to be, the more depressed we get and the more sad we get. If I do something adult, I immediately try and do something childish straight after, because it levels me out. So I bought my house. Biggest thing I've ever done was buy a house. I went and got my keys. And as soon as I got my keys, I went to Asda and I bought a trampoline. And I did not have kids. I just bought a trampoline for myself. Because you have to do that thing to even yourself out. You've got to embrace silliness. You've got to embrace spontaneity. Because if you don't, you will lose out on those opportunities. And those opportunities could either be dreadful or life-changing. And if you get the ones that are life-changing, your life will be way better off for it. And if you get the ones that are shit, then you've got some lessons. So both ways, you're coming out with a positive.
Yeah, just learning from unhappiness is quite important, but then yeah, I just like it. It's a great life lesson, to be honest. I don't really have much to add to it. It's just nice to know that there are people still out there who are kind of pushing this narrative of their own narrative as opposed to societal narratives, which are you must buy a house, you must have children, you must have a steady job. I don't have any of those things. Like, and I don't feel worse off for it. And I've had battles with friends for it. I've had friends say to me, why do you rent your one-bedroom house in the arse end of nowhere? Why do you persist on trying to make money from this really small niche business instead of going and working in a bank or going and working at a hospital or wherever it might be? And it's just like, because I don't want to. I just don't want to.
Yeah. And why should you? You shouldn't need to. It would be if it got to a point where you weren't able to do that, you could go and get a job. There is no shame in failure. There is no shame in not being successful, in inverted commas, as long as you're happy in what you're doing. If you've got a roof over your head, if you're able to eat, and if you enjoy what you're doing, then you've won. And it doesn't fucking matter about anything else.
Not much you can say to that, is there really?
And again, but all this goes back to the point of the world isn't that much of a shit place. I'm the person that's talking sense. That should never happen. I am a fucking idiot, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah, but everyone has a right to talk sense regardless of what they think they might be. So even though you're sitting there saying, I don't have a right to have that say, or people shouldn't listen to me for whatever reason, or blah, blah, blah. It's like, I get where you're coming from. It's like that self-denigration of humor. But it's that thing of, I've learned more from listening to nutters or mentalists or, the amount of times I'll be sat there at a wrestling show and there's a humongous man with muscles out the wazoo sitting there in his trunks, basically sitting in a pair of Speedos with a pair of leather boots on. And he's giving me life advice. He's giving me job advice. He's giving me, critiques or things to better myself. And I'm going to listen to that person well before I do this straight-laced guy with his suit and his briefcase, because I just don't want to be that way inclined anyway. So I'm always gonna ring you up and talk to you about what I'm going through, whether it be relationships or whatever, more so than I'm ever going to contact, I don't know, the Samaritans or a professional or a psychiatrist or somebody. I'm never going to go to the places that I'm told to go to. I'm always going to go to the places that people assume you shouldn't go to, because I'm going to learn more. And that's where it's quite weird. It all comes back in a roundabout way. We started off talking about snowflakes and liberals and political mentalities and things like that. I will happily sit there and listen to someone who I don't agree with at all, because I will still, like, for instance, I love Jim Cornette, right? And Jim Cornette is one of the most divisive names in wrestling. But the knowledge and the understanding and the learning, like, WrestlePlug is the way it is because I listen to people like Jim Cornette. I could have done the whole, I've got a podcast, let's be super PG, let's be super politically correct, let's not say anything dangerous, let's not swear. I've had people say to me, you probably get more views if you didn't swear so much, if you weren't so bombastic, blah, blah. And I'm like, what's the fucking point in that? Then all of a sudden, I am just a part of that machine again. I'm not providing you with anything that's fresh and alternative and real. I'm giving you the same vanilla cookie bullshit that everyone else is. And if they're making good money off of it, great. Simon Miller does an amazing job at What Culture, and he's a lovely guy to boot. I love Simon Miller so much, but I don't ever want to be anything like him because he's already got his thing. So why would I want to be like him? What's the point? There's no value.
Exactly. And what we learn throughout all of this is just don't be a dick. And that's it. Because again, yes, you are divisive. Yes, you don't give a shit. But you're also not a dick.
Well, that's debatable, but
Not yeah, well, yeah, but no, not at all. Because you don't care how dickheads see you, but you don't want to upset people who don't deserve it. And I think that's where it matters.
yeah, I get into a lot of clashes because of that, because I'm willing to give opportunities or help people out that other people have maligned for whatever reason.
Mm.
You know, if someone, for instance, I see a guy at wrestling who's very uncomfortable or unhappy or nervous or anxious, I'm more inclined to kind of sit down and be like, "Hey, buddy, what's going on? Like, what are you looking to do today? Is there any advice you'd like? Is there any help you'd like? Would you like me to jump in the ring and be a bump monkey for you guys while you're running through your match? Would you like me to referee something for you? Would you like me to film it a certain way?" Because the people who have already got it figured out don't need my help, and nobody ever needs anyone's help per se, if you know what I mean. I think it's more a case of they're going to probably get more value in my mind from me helping them than that person who's already there. I'm happy to help the people who are successful too. And it's lovely when high-end people and high-end talents or people that you revere will ask for your opinions. I get loads of guys who are big in my business saying like, "What did you think? What did you see?" You know, because they have the right mentality of they see value in everybody. And I see value in everyone. Even if they don't like me, I sort of sit there and think, okay, there must be value to that. Now, if they just send me a message and call me God knows what fucking, you know, I get all kinds of horrendous stuff sent to me. I just kind of brushed that off now. At the start, it was quite troubling because I wasn't used to it. So I was just like, oh, wow, like that's really hurtful and that makes me upset. And now I'm still sometimes think there's no need for that. But the predominant amount of times now, I'm just like, I have like 5 minutes where I think that was shitty. And I think, oh, well, that's just a shit opinion or a shit fucking, you know, slanging contest. That's just abuse. There's no value in that. There's no worth in that, you know? I am. Whereas if I read, like, it's, you know, I use reading as an analogy because I love reading. If I read a book that is divisive and dangerous and upsets people, whether it be a religious context or whatever, I will still look at it and take interest in it and value in it. Whereas if somebody just gives me a piece of paper with shit smeared on it, I'm like, well, that's just a piece of paper with shit smeared on it. Have it back. Not worth my time.
No, I get you. Very much so. Very, very much so. We went fucking heavy, didn't we?
You kind of expected it though, didn't you? Like, we're two very in-depth people with very unique personalities, so you're going to get a lot of that, and hopefully that's going to resonate with people that are listening, because we're all different and we're all so unique and we're all suffering and enjoying different things. And that's what I'm hoping, is that when people listen to this, I'm not interested in it being successful. I'm interested in it being some form of entertainment, but also some form of almost like therapy for people. I'm not saying come here and get your therapy from us. What I'm saying is that they might listen to this and think that was quite therapeutic for me. Just like the podcast I did with you on WrestlePlug, which is a great watch. And I do recommend people watching because it's very similar to this, but a little bit more wrestling heavy. It's one of those things where I hope that people watch it and feel the way I did, which is, oh wow, I came away from that thinking that was so much fun. There's a lifelong friend that I've made. There's somebody that I connect with on a personal level. And that for me is so rewarding and so nourishing as a human being, to come away and think, oh, I actually really enjoyed and valued those 2 hours I spent recording. And that's what I want people to feel and think when they listen and watch the WrestlePlug or Silent and the Death Machine, or if I'm on the Open Journal, which I am from time to time, which is my friend Mike's mental health blog. You know, it's that thing of, I want people not necessarily to love it or hate it. I want them to come away from it feeling similar to me, or understanding what was said, or taking things from it and thinking, there was value from that. There was, you know, there was some sort of cathartic nature from listening to it, which helped me in some way, or just, if anything, gave me a chuckle.
And that's the thing, it won't always be this heavy.
No.
There will be some times where the whole thing will be me and him arguing about a TV show.
Coming up next week, why DC is better than Marvel.
Yeah, well, that won't be an argument. It just is.
No, it just is. Yeah, like
it just is.
And I swear to God, if I get one more person tweeting me saying, "Yeah, but you haven't watched all of these Marvel things," I'm like, "That getting a bit." Like, it's just not for me. Enjoy it, have fun with it, but DC's better. Simple as that.
But I will disagree with you about Lord of the Rings. But that is not for now.
In what sense? What, the TV series?
It's just Lord of the Rings in general.
Oh, you're not a big fan of Lord of the Rings?
Horse shit, mate.
Really? Oh, okay.
Horse
How about
shit.
Harry Potter?
I can watch it and I can get through it. Not really for me, but it's not aimed at me.
Is it a fantasy thing in general?
No, because I like fantasy. I can suspend disbelief in that kind of manner. But yeah, I don't know what it is, but we'll end on this because this is a conversation that will get fucking deeper. But
next week, Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I had a conversation with someone, and the books were okay. I got on well with the books ish, from what I can remember. I read them when I was young.
Very powerful and very in depth. Much. They're very different to the films. Yeah,
very much so.
Because you're not going to be able to translate a 22-hour, book into a 2.5-hour film. That's just not happening.
Yeah, but also on the other side of it, there are a lot of problems with it, including the fact that it takes 4 fucking pages to describe one hill. Just nah. I've started to. Well, I did start to, but I've now given up. I wanted to watch all of the Lord of the Rings films and all of the Hobbits because I think I need to give them a chance again. I tried
films, so I can't talk about them.
It may have been because I was too young for them at the time to properly get them and appreciate them. I managed to watch half of the first Lord of the Rings film, and then I tried the second half, and I just bored, just absolutely bored. And I've got a friend whose fellow was disgusted that I wasn't watching Lord of the Rings and I wasn't enjoying Lord of the Rings. And this is a conversation I had. So she went, "Richard says you're a Philistine. He's in disbelief." I said, "I want to do it, but fuck me." Because she did complain about Zack Snyder's Justice League, about how there's a lot of slow motion in it. And it's fucking true. There is a lot of slow motion in it. So I want to do it, but fuck me. You complained about the slow motion in Justice League. You could take that 9-hour, if we're only taking into account the normal editions, because apparently 3-hour films needed to be extended. Film probably about 4 hours if you took out the nothing from it.
There's a watch along. You could do. I really want to drag you in a watch along, but I know you refuse. I think the third one, if you watch the entire extended cut, it's like 5.5 hours or something like
that. No. She said. He says Lord of the Rings is a great paced film, and they don't waste any time with it. And I went, of course it is. The 5 hours of panning shots are really needed. And his argument also was, and it won 4 Academy Awards. I went, yeah, Dune won 3 this year, and that was a fucking waste of space.
Oh, was it? I haven't seen Dune. What, the new one?
Yeah, oh God, fucking boring.
Yeah, I will watch it just because the novel is fantastic.
It's beautiful to look at.
Masterpiece, the novel.
Yeah, it's beautiful to look at, but fuck beans, it's just dull and depressing.
But it's got Jason Momoa and the ladies like that.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Plus, he's great as Aquaman.
He's fucking great as Aquaman.
Jason
we will talk more about this next week. Yes. We will talk about more of this next week, including the fact that I don't think sexuality exists.
I look forward to talking about that because that's a really open-ended statement. So I don't know. Like, I look forward to delving into that. We'll go for movies and sexuality next week.
Yeah.
for anyone watching, if they're watching this and thinking like, oh, I'd love you to talk about this, this, and this, leave it in the comments or contact us. You know, we've got social media, you know, Silent Mark on Twitter and things like that. I'm on all social media platforms as Aeron Design, or you can contact WrestlePlug, or you can just contact this podcast directly on the YouTube, or you know, we'll probably make an email at some point if people want to send in an email. It'd be very cool to have like a mailbag segment. I love stuff like that.
Oh yeah, same. We will do that. We will do something like that. As I say, this is a pilot. We are going to release it because why the fuck not? But it may be more polished at some point. We don't know.
I doubt it
at all.
What are you talking about? Really polished.
Yeah, but I'm going to be doing music to this at some point, or I'll get a friend of mine to do music to it because I've realized I'm not great at it. But thank you all for watching and listening. My name's been Silent Mark.
I've been Aeron X.
And we will see you soon.
Love you.
Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.